Some people are about to click away from this video in the next few seconds. And honestly, that's exactly why their life never changes. Because transformation rarely arrives looking dramatic at first. Sometimes it enters quietly, through one sentence, one realization, one uncomfortable truth that suddenly hits you at the exact moment you needed it most. So, before you scroll, before you distract yourself again, listen carefully. Because what if the frustration you've been feeling lately isn't a sign that your life is falling apart, but proof that your old identity can no longer hold the person you're becoming? Think about that for a second. Maybe the exhaustion you feel isn't weakness. Maybe the confusion isn't failure. Maybe this strange emotional distance you felt from people, places, routines, and even old dreams is happening because your soul knows you can no longer stay where you used to belong. There's a reason you've been feeling emotionally heavy lately. A reason certain conversations drain you faster than before. A reason fake connections suddenly feel unbearable. A reason your spirit has become tired of pretending everything is okay. And deep down, you already know this. You've changed. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough to realize you cannot return to the mindset that once kept you small. You thought you were losing motivation, but maybe you were simply becoming incompatible with the version of yourself that was created only to survive pain. And that changes everything. Because most people misunderstand growth. They think growth looks like confidence, like instant clarity, like visible success. But real growth often begins in isolation, in silence, in the uncomfortable phase where your old self is collapsing, but your new self has not fully arrived yet. That space can feel terrifying because you no longer connect to who you used to be, but you also haven't fully become who you're meant to be. So you feel stuck between two versions of yourself. And if that's where you are right now, this message is for you. Stay with me, because the next part might explain what you've been unable to put into words. Some of the strongest transformations happen in seasons where nothing externally makes sense. You wake up every day trying to stay hopeful, trying to stay disciplined, trying to keep believing. But internally, you feel tired. Not physically tired, soul tired. Tired of waiting, tired of uncertainty, tired of wondering when life will finally begin moving again. And the dangerous part about this phase is that from the outside, nobody sees your internal battle. They only see your silence. They don't see the thoughts you fight every night. They don't see how hard you're trying not to give up. They don't see how many times you've rebuilt yourself privately while smiling publicly. But the fact that nobody sees it does not make it meaningless. Actually, some of the most important chapters of your life will happen completely unseen. A diamond is formed under pressure nobody witnesses. Muscles grow through resistance nobody applauds. And people transform through battles nobody understands. So maybe this season was never empty. Maybe it was constructing emotional strength your future will require. Because the truth is, the life you want demands a version of you that your past could not produce. And that's why this process has taken longer than expected. Not because life forgot you, but because rushing your growth would have damaged your future. Listen carefully to this part. Sometimes delays are not rejections. Sometimes they are training. Sometimes life withholds certain experiences until your mindset can sustain them without self-destruction. And if you truly look back honestly, you'll realize there were moments in your past where you asked for things you weren't emotionally prepared to handle. Now you are different. Now you think deeper. Now you notice patterns faster. Now you protect your peace more carefully. Now your intuition speaks louder than external validation. That is growth. And growth changes your entire reality. You know what's interesting? The people around you may still see the old version of you. But internally, you know something is shifting. Your tolerance for negativity is lower. Your need for constant approval is fading. Your desire for shallow distractions is disappearing. You're beginning to crave meaning instead of noise. And that is a sign your life is entering a new phase. A real one. Not temporary motivation, not fake positivity, a deep internal shift. And most people will never understand how powerful that moment truly is. Because once your mindset changes, your decisions change, your energy changes, your standards change, your future changes, and eventually, your entire life changes. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They quit during the invisible stage, the stage where nothing externally confirms that you're growing, the the stage where effort feels unanswered, the stage where you begin questioning whether all your hard work, patience, and emotional endurance are even leading anywhere at all. That stage breaks a lot of people because human beings naturally want evidence. We want signs. We want reassurance that the pain means something. But growth does not always give immediate proof. Sometimes the transformation is happening internally long before your outer world begins reflecting it back to you. And that's the dangerous part, because externally, your life may look almost the same, while internally, you are becoming a completely different person. Most people never survive that phase. They leave too early. They return to old habits too quickly. They shrink themselves back into familiar environments because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is not always a warning sign. Sometimes discomfort is evidence that your identity is expanding beyond the limits of your old life. And if you're in that phase right now, where you feel emotionally stretched between who you were and who you're becoming, do not turn back now. Not after everything you've already survived. Not after all the nights you had to rebuild your mind alone. Not after every silent breakdown you recovered from privately. Not after every disappointment that tried to convince you your future was hopeless. Because the truth is, most people would have already given up if they carried the weight you've carried. But you didn't. You're still here, still trying, still hoping, still searching for meaning, even after life gave you every reason to become bitter. That matters more than you realize. Your resilience is changing you in ways you cannot fully see yet. Every difficult season has been strengthening something inside you. Your patience became stronger, your intuition became sharper, your standards became higher, your awareness became deeper. You stopped needing constant approval. You stopped chasing every distraction. You stopped forcing connections that drained your spirit. And slowly, without even realizing it, you began becoming someone different, someone wiser, someone calmer, someone harder to break. That transformation did not happen overnight. It happened through survival, through endurance, through repeatedly choosing not to give up even when your emotions told you to. And one day, you're going to realize that your hardest seasons were also your most important ones, because they introduced you to strengths you never would have discovered otherwise. Listen carefully to this next part. There are people right now who look successful on the outside, but internally they are lost. And then there are people like you, people who may still be building externally, but internally are developing depth, resilience, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and inner strength that cannot be faked. That kind of growth creates lasting change. And yes, it often takes longer, but lasting things usually do. A strong mind takes time to build. A healed heart takes time to rebuild. A meaningful life takes time to align. So stop insulting your progress simply because it isn't happening fast enough for your expectations. You are evolving, and evolution is rarely comfortable. Sometimes growth looks like isolation. Sometimes growth looks like confusion. Sometimes growth looks like everything falling apart before the right things finally come together. That's why this chapter feels so emotionally intense. You are not merely changing habits. You are changing identity. And identity shifts are painful because they require releasing parts of yourself that once felt familiar. The old mindset, the old fears, the old emotional attachments, the old version of you that settled for less because it was afraid nothing better would arrive. That version is fading now. And honestly, that's a good thing, because the future you keep imagining cannot be reached by remaining emotionally attached to the person you used to be. A new life requires a new self. That's why certain relationships no longer feel aligned. That's why certain environments suddenly exhaust you. That's why your spirit has become more sensitive to negativity, manipulation, and emotional chaos. You're no longer capable of comfortably living in spaces that require you to betray your peace. And even though this transition feels lonely sometimes, it is necessary, because loneliness is not always emptiness. Sometimes loneliness is the space where clarity finally enters your life. Sometimes the noise has to disappear before you can hear your own intuition again. And maybe that's what's happening to you now. Maybe life has been removing distractions so you can finally see your path clearly. Maybe the delays protected you from things that would have emotionally destroyed you. Maybe the closed doors redirected you away from experiences that looked good temporarily but would have damaged your future permanently. You don't always understand protection while it's happening. Sometimes protection feels like rejection at first, but eventually, life reveals why certain things had to fall apart. And when that understanding arrives, everything changes. One conversation can change your direction. One opportunity can change your finances. One realization can change your mindset. One decision can change your future. Never underestimate how quickly life can transform once internal alignment begins. That's why you cannot afford to give up during temporary darkness, because some breakthroughs arrive quietly, not with fireworks, not with instant certainty, but slowly. One new habit, one better decision, one healed wound, one moment where you finally stop doubting yourself. And eventually, those small internal shifts create massive external change. So, if you're still listening right now, I want you to remember something. You are not failing because your progress is slow. You are rebuilding, and rebuilding takes time, especially when you're trying to build a life that no longer depends on pretending to be okay while silently suffering inside. You are building something more real now, something stable, something aligned, something honest. And yeah, there will still be difficult days ahead, days where doubt returns, days where fear gets loud, days where you wonder if anything is truly changing. But do not let temporary emotions make permanent decisions for your life. Feel the doubt if you must. Just don't surrender to it, because your future still needs the version of you that refuses to quit. And if you've made it this far in the video, comment, "I didn't give up." Not to impress anyone, not for attention, but because sometimes healing begins when you finally recognize how many storms you've already survived. You've survived confusion, you've survived heartbreak, you've survived disappointment, you've survived moments that emotionally shattered you. And despite all of it, you are still here, still breathing, still fighting, still carrying a future inside you that refuses to disappear. That is not weakness, that is strength, real strength. The kind built quietly, the kind nobody applauds at first, the kind that eventually changes an entire life. So keep moving forward, even slowly, even imperfectly, even while you're still healing. Because one day, everything that feels confusing right now will suddenly make sense. And the version of you that once cried over delayed progress will someday look around at the life you built and realize nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the waiting, not the setbacks, not the loneliness. It was all shaping you into someone capable of holding the future you once prayed for. So trust the process a little longer. Your story is not over yet. In many ways, it may finally be beginning.